Listen up and watch as I take Kamala Harris's haircut and break it down into a step-by-step process that allows you to either knock it out yourself, share this with a hairdresser, or if you're a hairdresser, my gosh, here's a gem for you. Now, Kamala Harris is sophisticated, she's smart, she's experienced, she's been our vice president for the last 3.5 years, and she's about to be our next president. I'm pretty confident in saying so. But what I love about her look is that it's timeless and classic. And in her haircut, I'm going to use Hairdressing Made Easy and the three elements of every haircut to break this down. Welcome to Combing Through Politics. I'm Travis Parker, and let's get going. Now, the first thing I start to look at in every haircut is what is the length of the haircut. We immediately start to see Kamala's haircut hangs out right over the top of the shoulder. Pretty straightforward. And I'm going to share with you some pictures in just a minute where we can see where the length of the back is in relation to the front. But my thought is it's probably cut consistently to the round of the head using a flat line, and we'll break that down again in just a minute. Now, the next thing in her haircut that I think is a big standout is the fact that she's got flat layers cut across the top of her head, everything being combed 90 to over direct from the center profile of her head. And the reason we can tell is right in through here, we see this roundness that's happening in there, and then a skinny sort of edge towards the base, which allows the ends to flip out. I'll get into that in just a moment as well. The next thing I start to think about is, okay, what's going on with her face framing here? And in her haircut, what I start to see is a consistent graduated length from a shorter point being just below her cheekbone all the way down to the base of her haircut. But I also see this whipping action that's happening right in between the jaw and the cheekbone as well. And let's go ahead and take a look and see what that is. So kind of right in through there and right in through there. We see that happening and flipping out through the sides there. So more than likely, they've used for graduation when they built her haircut. So let's take a look at how we would dissect this haircut and start our main sectioning pattern to isolate our layers from our length. First thing is we've got a lot of layers in this haircut. You can really start to see, let me draw a little line here again. We can really start to see all of these layers that are kind of happening right in through here. And then everything pretty much from there down is one length. So up and through there, we can see that the majority of the top of her head, which I would isolate that area right there, which is the parietal ridge or mid-recession to the back of the ear, from the rest of it, which again, all of this right in through here, we see that right in there, and that is what we call a dropped horseshoe. That is allowing a little bit more layering to deposit deeper into the convex area of the head, right to the occipital bone in the back of the head, which is right there. And that's a transition, again, from the convex area of the head, from the concave area of the head. And I would say, I'd bet my last pair of shears, that this is probably the sectioning pattern that they used. I'd assume it wasn't a straight horseshoe. From mid-recession all the way around through the crown of the head to the mid-recession on the opposite side, just because, again, we've got so many layers happening in the back of the head. So how do we start to knock this out in a step-by-step instruction? We see that hollow area up and through the top right now that's been now removed. The blue area before has now been removed. We've got that gray area. This is determining the fact that we are working with the length of her haircut. We see two opaque blue lines, and let me start to render this as well. We see two opaque blue lines happening right here and right there. That's us taking the back of the head and finding the vertical planes in the back of the head, or the transition to the round of the head, and isolating it from everything else. So we have three main standing positions and body positions as we start to knock this out. This is our first sectioning pattern right here that has been pulled to 0 degrees. It is cut flat across the back. We stand in the center of that section. Next section is going to be on the left or the right side of it. It's going to be right here. And again, we are going to stand right in the center of that section, pull it straight down, continue to build that line flat to the head. And then, of course, we would do the same thing on the opposite side. What I do notice in her haircut is a little bit of a roundness right in through here. What's happening is at the back of the ear, she potentially has calyx right in through the nape of her neck, the rear recession behind the back of the neck. That moves up and in towards the middle. And when that does that, that elevates that side area on the back of the head, and it sort of creates this rounded effect. So I bet my last pair of shears that it's not being cut to a round convex line. It's being cut flat, and then right at the back of the ears, back of her body, it starts to round out based upon cowlicks and density, hair per square inch, all that sort of jazz. And then as we move from there directly into the sides of her head, it's carried from that length at the back of the ear straight up towards the front, probably less hair per square inch up and through the front. So that shrinks up just a little bit. But once again, get our handy little drawing tool here. Once again, I see a length that's kind of happening right in there. And that is slightly shorter than the back. But my assumption is we've created a flat line cutting to the round of the head form from back towards the front. And all of that, none of it has elevation. All of that's carried on base, meaning that we comb it straight down. It sits where it lives. We're building a flat line across that baseline. My assumption is it's probably been blunt cut, not point cut as well. My thought is that based upon the porosity and the formation of her curl, that the ends might frizz out a little bit if it was point cut. So it's probably blunt cut to establish weight through the base of the haircut, especially in the sense that we've got so much allocated towards the layers. And let's let that take us right into the layering pattern. Now, we've got flat layers across the back there. There's a number of different ways to approach this. In the rendering here, I've done a profile section, which is that small mohawk section right in the middle. Let me grab our little drawing tool again. We've got that profile section, which is right towards the middle, right in there. That's our very first section. All of that is carried straight up, and we are cutting that line parallel to the ground. Now, the shortest point, what I'm starting to see in her haircut, let me take that same color, and I'm going to draw a line straight across and straight across there. What I'm thinking is the shortest length's about right there. The longest length coming from the top of her head or the center of the back of the head, the occipital bone, is about that space and that distance. And that, to me, is telling me that we've probably got about maybe 8 to 10 inches of length that we're starting to establish. And then again, cutting that square across the back of the head. Each section from there is taken with diagonal sections from that profile, and using that guide to length, as you can see up and through the top up here, we start to build that line flat across. It's also called anti-head shape. It's called cutting it square to the head. We call it cutting a flat line square to the head shape at Travis Parker Academy. But that's what I'm thinking is happening in the back of her head. And again, when that starts to fall over the head, we see a large collection of length in a specific area. And as I drafted in the previous drawing, let's do the same thing right here. I see, once again, the shortest length right there, the longest length right there coming from the top of her head. And what we're starting to look at is what's the distance between that point and that point. If I take that and that measurement right there where that blue arrow is, and I start to see where her profile part is, where her hair is parted, period, and the transition between the top and the sides right there, what I start to notice is that the distance between here and there is the same as it is right down here. So that indicates to me that they've cut it flat across the top of the head or parallel to the ground, parallel to the horizon. And you can see in the rendering, what we've done there is we've carried everything on base from the radial forward with keeping things on base, pulling it straight up, cutting it 90 to over direct, which is cutting it square across the top of the head. And then right up and through the front there, you can see we've over directed that back to the very previous section that's coming from the hairline there. That just leaves a little bit more hair that falls over the cheekbones and the jawline, which carries us right into our next rendering right here. We call it face framing. There's a number of different ways that we can build face framing. We can have a horizontal fringe. We can have vertical fringe. We can have a combination of both. What we're dealing with Kamala's here is a vertical fringe, and I'm assuming that we're using forward graduation to do this. In the fact that she's got this business that's happening right in there, and you see this little area right there that's cut inside the haircut. In order for us to get that effect, we typically comb the hair straight forward towards the nose or the chin. We build that line from its shortest point to its longest point. And when that drops back down to natural fall, we really get that nice little swing that's happening, again, right in through there. And the majority of that swing is happening, let's just take it for what it is. It's happening from about right there to about right there. So where that triangular section is, as that's combed forward, again, and cut, we are now cutting inside the actual haircut right here which is what gives us that whip off the side of the cheekbone and that really elegant feature. Matter of fact, it's really awesome if we like to pull our hair up and drop some little money pieces around the face. And yeah, and we get that effect from Bora Grad. So my friends, that is how I break down Kamala Harris's haircut, potentially our next president of the United States. I hope you like our episode of Combing Through Politics. I'll see you in the next one.